So wouldn't you believe it, we actually have an update about the Warhammer situation. If you thought this situation could not get worse, you are sadly mistaken. It has gotten way worse, with fans of Warhammer trying to mass boycott this thing. They don't want to deal with Games Workshop and their DEI push anymore. They do not like the gaslighting or the lazy writing in which they insert a retcon for an all-male elite team in the Warhammer universe lore. There are actually many reasons that they are all-male, which is explained in some of the lore I was reading about it. One of those reasons being control, because if you have men and women in this elite team, they could breed and create an entire line of these super beings and go against the Emperor if they so choose, and the Emperor cares about control in this story. Just one of the many reasons that a lot of these fake Warhammer fans ignore. I'm not even a die-hard dedicated fan of Warhammer, and I can see who is fake and who is real by the things that they say and the receipts that they bring to the table. It's very obvious, actually. But let's check out this story from That Park Place, since they have done a really good job of compiling a lot of these tweets of people who are disappointed in the direction of Warhammer and have decided that it's best if they part ways. Numerous Warhammer players canceled their subscriptions and announced a boycott of Games Workshop after announcement of female Adeptus Custodes. So numerous Warhammer players are canceling their subscriptions and announcing a boycott of Games Workshop after the company retconned their Adeptus Custodes faction to add females. So imagine if there were a bunch of these running around, because the males and females just have to get busy, and now the Emperor has another problem to contend with, and this is something that people do not understand or acknowledge. Excerpts from the upcoming 10th edition of Codex Adeptus Custodes revealed that Games Workshop was adding females to the all-male faction. One excerpt reads, quote, Custodian Calades Tervalia, Kesh, stood upon the bridge of a Cobra-class destroyer named Vigilant Flame. The warship belonged to the mighty battle fleet Solar. She lingered in the shadows at the back of the bridge, positioned at a spot where she could observe the actions of every crew member, be they in the instrumentation pits, at the armament shrines, or, in the case of Shipmaster Lethwick, stood ramrod straight before his command throne. And another excerpt makes it clear that Kesh is indeed a female Custodes, given that she wields a guardian spear. So yes, this is the retcon that they were talking about, and fans have been reacting to it after Warhammer official replied saying, since the first of the 10,000 were created, there have always been female custodians, which is a straight up lie and has been debunked by not only players and users on Twitter, but also by YouTubers, including Luton, in their own videos where they break down the lore to explain how wrong Warhammer is in this situation. It says, following this retcon and the subsequent gaslighting from Games Workshop, numerous hobbyists, enthusiasts, and former customers have canceled their subscriptions. So down here you've got Kiss My GW, Not Another Penny, showing that they canceled the subscription. Another one right there with you. I don't think I'll be buying anything else from GW, and I'm not even sure if I want to keep anything anymore, so they might not even keep the things that they've collected over the years. This person said, I canceled mine too. I'm married with kids. This person canceled their Warhammer subscription, saying, I will no longer spend money with your company. I will advocate others do the same. And wow, I mean, the people are taking note of this. I canceled mine too. I'm married with 4 kids. One is gay, another is trans. I'm not against female Custodes, even though they've been the Emperor's favorite sons for years. I'm against the gaslighting from GW, and this is something that people, again, are ignoring. I've seen so many posts of these people calling all these Warhammer fans chuds for not liking the direction Warhammer is going in, and now there's a big boycott going on. This person said, I've canceled mine. This other person said, I've enjoyed this hobby since second as well. Long nights playing games with friends in a basement for years. But I guess since people are calling him a tourist, he says, yeah, sure, now watch me leave with the money I would have spent on future stuff. I'm sure that's exactly what these people want, but they don't understand that if the majority of the Warhammer player base leaves and all that's left are a bunch of woke freaks that don't even care about the lore, then it's not going to succeed as an IP. I guarantee you. It goes further for me, this person says. I also unsubscribed to the 40k channels I was following except for Arch's second channel just to track an impending show that this IP will become. I'm just gonna say right off the bat, Luton, he had some things to say about this and he did not agree. So if there's somebody that I recommend following for the lore and actually paying attention to, definitely Luton I recommend. So yeah, there are plenty of examples of people quitting. I feel you. He canceled Warhammer Plus. I was gonna get one of the Chaos Battle Forces due out this spring, but now he's not. He's gonna spend his money elsewhere. So many examples of this. But what I find most interesting about this Park Place article, and we'll get on to other things because there's a lot to break down in this video, but I found this very interesting. The boycott of Games Workshop and Warhammer due to its obvious embrace of feminist ideology can only be seen as a good thing because it means less people will be subjected to future propaganda that Games Workshop will inject into its games, books, and TV shows. It also means the demoralization that comes along with this propaganda will be blunted. This demoralization was noted by former KGB agent Yuri Bezmenov, and it basically suggests that a strategy to contribute to brainwashing would be to demoralize people over the next 15 to 20 years. And I feel like that's been something that we've been seeing in movies and entertainment, video games, etc. A big, huge push for demoralization, trying to eliminate the hero of the story and putting in all of these woke social ideological movements that nobody wants or cares about. And they're doing it constantly to where people are just giving up and quitting on these IPs. And all that's left are a bunch of people who don't care about it. And it's creating an unmitigated disaster all around. Now, there are people who have defended this push from Warhammer to retcon these things. And of course, it comes from former employees that used to work for Games Workshop. Nick Davis, he says, I worked for Games Workshop for a very specific part of its history. I started in the mail order trolls and worked my way up in the studio, finished out my career with Games Workshop working on White Dwarf Magazine, UK, and then US edition. So he was in this business for a hot minute. He says, the hobby, as I like to call it, is supposed to be fun, a uniting force between gamers, and he says you were never supposed to build silos of lore because the very idea of the Warhammer and Warhammer 40,000 universe was the history was so convoluted and fragmented there was no such thing as fact. Everything was supposed to contradict, that was the purpose, to which people responded in heavy disagreement with this person. Thor Odinson lays down the smackdown on this guy with a plethora of tweets explaining how vitriolic the fake fans of Warhammer are coming against the real fans who have actually spent money in this business. They're calling Writing Raven a pick-me, and you've got the pick-Mizana curse. Look at what they've been saying to me. I started out polite, explaining that it is insulting to the SOS to be passed over so Custodes can have a token female with no history or explanation and then be gaslit. The absolute vitriol directed towards me has led me to get nasty, and they're calling her terrible things. They're calling this person awful things. The only time I felt excluded from the hobby is when I said I would like to keep Space Marines male to maintain the storytelling, themes of fraternity, and fatherhood in the novels. These are just a bunch of examples. People just getting lit up, nonsensical people who aren't even fans coming out and saying things like a lot of chuds are getting big mad because of the new Custodes Codex because they rightfully see it as a stepping stone toward normalizing the concept of previously all male factions becoming multi-gendered. So does this person sound like they understand why the Custodes are all male? Probably not, because this person says, to that I say, I hope nothing you once held sacred goes undefiled. And I don't know why a fan of Warhammer would say such ridiculous things. It just doesn't seem like something they would say. And this list goes on and on and on and on. I mean, Thor Odinson brought the receipts to this. This is crazy. Basically just throwing it in this guy's face that there are a bunch of fake fans attacking the real fans for not liking the direction that Warhammer is going in. Some more wishing to drive existing fans out and harassment of existing female fans. So they're picking on the ladies, dude. Writing Raven is a lady. The person I was talking about earlier, they're ladies. I mean, men and women are all being subjected to many forms of harassment for simply saying, I'm not going to buy your product anymore. And Nick Davis is one of those people. Whether he likes to believe it or not, whether he says that he's a reasonable person or not, he's attacking Grums straight up because Grums said Games Workshop lies about Custodes and retcons lore, gender flipping them. And I told you guys about this in my last video. This guy responded saying, well, now it is clear why you're a former team lead, eh? I mean, just personally insulting people because they're just pointing out facts. He says, seriously, 40k lore is unreliable narration at best. Myth, legend, and contradiction abound throughout the background history, heck, even through your own history. And if possible, female Marines, Custodes, and LGBTQ plus representation make you lose your water. That's on you and you alone. And it seems like this person is misunderstanding why people are upset. And Thor Odinson, of course, has a reply for him saying, the 100 plus black library novels I own, all those lore books, codex books, etc. are utterly worthless and not worth the paper they're printed on. Good to know. So yeah, people are pushing back on these former Warhammer employees who are attacking Grums, because it seems like every time Grums says something, these people just appear out of seemingly nowhere to say the darndest things. But guess what? It's not just Warhammer employees. No, we've got the Borderlands 3 writer throwing his hat into the ring, saying something like this: as someone who deeply loves lore, there's no such thing as a multimedia universe that hasn't retconned, contradicted, or reframed its own lore. And that's not only fine, it's good for storytelling. Story will always come first. And it's so funny that he says this because Sam Winkler has written one of the worst Borderlands stories of all time, something of which he acknowledges he has been criticized for the last 5 or so years by fans. So there is acknowledgement there, and this is not the first time we have encountered Sam Winkler, because he always has something to say when it comes to quote-unquote Gamergate 2, anything that gamers say in pushing back against Sweet Baby Inc., or anything that Grums has to say. This guy is not happy about it. He says, I see this argument all the time against DEI and consultancy, and it just highlights the total misunderstanding of what being a good writer is. You don't somehow max out your stats and learn how to write every conceivable character, plot, or prose style. He says knowing you can't, aren't ready, or aren't the right person to write something is one of the chief skills for a pro writer. I mean, he says that the way to be a good writer is to hire other people to help you write your thing rather than you just write it, because that's what a good writer does. It seems to me that this guy does not know what good writing is, but a lack of understanding is something that these people are known for. Well, why do I say that? Well, if you take a look at this other Park Place article from March 28th, and this was the same day that Sam Winkler posted a tweet we're going to take a look at in just a second and connect a few dots here, but Embracer Group sells Borderlands developer Gearbox Entertainment to Take-Two Interactive, but keeps Sweet Baby Inc. influenced Hyper Lightbreaker. So Hyper Lightbreaker gets to stay. Gearbox Entertainment is sold to Take-Two Interactive, and there were layoffs when this happened. So this situation was exploding. There were a bunch of Gearbox employees being laid off, but guess who was safe? Guess who did not get fired? That is right, Sam Winkler, the lead writer for Borderlands 3. I think that he is still there. It's so funny because that same day that it was announced that Gearbox was being sold to Take-Two, Sam Winkler said, with the new purchase, Gearbox is losing some incredible talent, especially in our publishing and comms arms. I'll be spending the day amplifying them, and I ask that you do the same. If anyone has any positions open that match their skills, I am happy to be a reference. And so this guy works for Gearbox. He was one of the people who did not get fired, and the best that he can do is go on a social media and repost people a few times, with Kelsey Stanley saying, as happy as I am for the rest of my Gearbox family for the new adventure with Take-Two and 2K, sadly, I am one of the folks who has been affected, and of course he reposted that. Got the news today that Gearbox Publishing is not included in the deal with Take-Two. I'm laid off, along with the majority of our teams. He reposted that too, and of course other people saying that they are getting removed. Unfortunately, I was informed today that my job role is being eliminated, and these are the kinds of people who defend the retcons in the Warhammer universe lore. People who cannot hold the story of Borderlands up to standard, but apparently get to keep their jobs despite doing a very bad job, and the people who probably deserve to be there are being removed while he gets to stay reposting their turmoil and agony all day long. But don't worry, he only did it for a day, because nowadays the only thing that he is busy reposting is hatred for J.K. Rowling, with this thimbo person saying, you say J.K. Rowling is a cowardly bigot, but would a cowardly bigot have an array of lawyers regularly threaten her critics into silence and show apologies? And this is the kind of thinking that these people have. And it is so interesting because all of these people who come out in defense of Sweet Baby Inc. or retcons that are being perpetuated by BlackRock-owned Games Workshop, they always seem to be employed by companies that are just going down in flames, being sold to different publishers for much lower money than they were sold beforehand. I mean, we've got more news from that Park Place because they're always on point with their stories. Less than a month after acquiring Gearbox, remember the article I just read to you guys from March, Take-Two Interactive to reportedly fire 5% of its staff and scrap multiple projects. So on top of those people being fired a month prior, even more people are being fired. And not just that, they're going to scrap multiple projects. But guess what game is safe? GTA 6, of course, that's a Take-Two Interactive published game. This report comes from Cecilia D'Anastasio at Bloomberg. She writes, Take-Two Interactive Software Inc., the company behind the Grand Theft Auto video games, plans to fire 5% of its workforce and drop several projects as part of a cost savings drive. How much do you guys want to bet that it's Gearbox's Borderlands 4 or whatever Borderlands video game they have planned? Probably not, because the lead writer sure if Borderlands 3 has been safe this entire time, they probably intend to push out another game. So I imagine that that game is not canceled, although sometimes I wish that it was, especially knowing who is in charge of it. But she notes the company plans to cut costs by around 200 million. 140 million is being cut by the scrapping of numerous projects, while 35 million will be done by firing its workforce. But I wanted to point this guy out because this person, along with Nick Davis and other people who have no idea what in the heck is going on and why people are so upset about these things, they have such horrid takes on everything. And they also show how selfish and disconnected they are from normal everyday people when they say the most ridiculous and hateful things. I mean, this isn't the first time that these people have had these horrible takes. Just further evidence that 99.99% of the people spewing this S have never created a single thing in their lives that they're proud of, and the rest are just straight up bigots. Uncreative bigots. That's what he thinks of people who speak out against Sweet Baby Inc., about people who speak out against the Warhammer retcon push. And he's just like Nick Davis. Nick Davis, who has nothing better to do than to respond to everybody who has a criticism for him or for Games Workshop with a bunch of trolling. Please don't become the villain in your own story. Take a step back, breathe. Gaming is fun, not an exercise in contrition. Play well. Perhaps he woke up to find the Emperor in the shower. I mean, these people are expressing their actual disdain for the situation, and he has nothing else to say but troll people in their responses when they actually try to bring them receipts. That's why when Thor Odinson brings a crap ton of receipts to show how contradictory their statements are, he never responded to Thor Odinson. I mean, these people have nothing to say in order to find common ground with the people who are boycotting this. These people who are boycotting, by the way, they've spent hundreds, not just hundreds, but thousands of dollars, and they've brought receipts to show that they are truly dedicated to this IP. And now that the failure of DEI is not only being injected into Warhammer, but also causing a huge downfall in the gaming industry with a bunch of layoffs across the board, people being fired almost every day, even when gaming studios and companies are being sold from one publisher to another, there is still a downward spiral that is inescapable, it seems. And it's so sad to see, by the way, that when people were pushing back against Warhammer, all that they could manage to do in response is to block these people. People getting blocked across the board, people who have dedicated so much of their time to this IP. I got blocked for one of these, all of which I would consider softballs. This person got blocked, this person got blocked, they're blocked, they're blocked. Just mass blocking people who criticize this direction that Warhammer is taking. So yes, it's more of the same, but on a different level now, because you've got people who are still surviving in this industry, haphazardly tiptoeing this situation and saying, well, it's okay if women are in it. Totally, they've always been there, not understanding how important this lore is to so many people. But my question is, will this boycott be effective? And will these other people who are coming out in defense of this be vindicated? Or is Warhammer going to go down? I don't know, because it's a very, very big thing. I think it's a little bit hard for this thing to just come crumbling down because fans are boycotting it. But I think that most of these people who are boycotting and posting the receipts of their cancellations are just trying to get a message across to these people that they've spent thousands of dollars and much of their energy on over the past number of years. They just want to send a message saying that we don't like what you're doing, and we don't like how lazy this is, we don't like the gaslighting, and we don't want a bunch of DEI pushed into Warhammer, because if it is, it's going to cause a lot of damage, and I agree with that. So we'll see where this thing goes, and that is all I have for you guys today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you haven't had the chance to like it and share it with your friends, that would be awesome. And hey, if you're feeling ultra spicy, consider subscribing to my channel so that you're always up to date on what kind of thing I've got going on. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Later. Meow meow.